What's going on, world? It's your boy at Big Game James _36. I'm here with Greg McGarity, and this is our Tax Slayer Gator Bowl Drive to Selection show presented by Toyota, where each and every week, me and Greg come to you and talk to you about what's going on in the college football world and as it relates to the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl being played January 2nd here in Jacksonville, Florida. So, 100 games in a few days, and I outside of some results that I don't like, that I have no control over, I was like a kid in the candy store. I love football.
Well, yeah, if you love college football, it was wonderful, like you said. And what a way to end it with that game Sunday night, which I think Southern Cal surprised a lot of people. LSU disappointed again in an opening week. And then Monday night, you have to give all the credit in the world to Bill O'Brien and Boston College, the way they dominated both lines of scrimmage. Opened a lot of eyes up in the ACC.
A good NFL coach comes in with a mindset, did the most disrespectful thing that you can do in football. I love being on the other side of it. I mean, on the right side of it. I hate being on the bad side of it. I call it the most exciting play in football, victory. And like to take a knee when you know you can score, that's just some people, that is the ultimate sign of, I just whooped your behind. Yeah. What were some of the games that stood out over the weekend? And let's just talk about, I know one for me that would have been an intra-conference matchup that obviously we can't see a replay of this, would be Florida-Miami. What were some of the takeaways from that game, and is Miami back?
Well, I mean, the way they dominated on the lines of scrimmage, and they were just so aggressive. They have a very talented quarterback. Everybody saw that, but their ability to function efficiently in that environment, especially in the beginning of the game, was extremely impressive. But I was really impressed with the way they just got after the football. They were able to run the ball well. Their passing was extremely efficient, and Florida's defense really wasn't up to the task, and it showed in the final score.
Yeah, I think really, they threw the ball with Cam Ward a lot, did very, very well on a lot of people's Heisman charts right now. But they really could have just ran the ball right down, and which just is a scary thing, because everybody knows that when Miami gets it going, they're very bombastic, very fun, but a very fun brand of football to watch. Now, before we get into the other things, you have a little bit more experience than some of us. And the only reason you watch shows like this is not, obviously we're giving good content, but everybody wants to be an insider. Like, now we're teaching people how to pick bowl games, but not every day do you get a guy who's actually been through the experience as an athletic director, of hiring, and the unfortunate part of firing somebody. So Florida fans right now are not happy, and I get it. But how does the process, and how early does the process start with firing a coach? Is this something that you kind of just wait to the end of the season for? Is it something that you kind of, all right, it's on my radar, I don't want to do it, I need to start planning it? What goes into all of that?
Well, there's so many things, James, that do go into that discussion or that evaluation. And there are a lot of markers, and really it's up to the athletic director to determine what those markers are. Certain things you want to be able to view practice, you want to be able to see how people react to certain situations, see how people react to failure, see how resilient they are, see how they play in week 2 and week 3 and week 4. So I think patience is in short demand now, but in situations like this, you have to be patient. Probably the worst thing you can do is really make a change during the season. It doesn't really gain you anything other than a lot of uncertainty. And at the forefront are the players. And as long as their experience is positive, and you want to win, don't get me wrong, that's the name of the game in college football, is winning. But a lot of times when you make decisions, then there's so much uncertainty in the air, and who's to say for certain you've got somebody already lined up? Because a coach, if you're trying to go after another coach, they're already coaching at an institution. So what kind of message would that be to that prospective coach that, man, I've got my own season to worry about right now? Where is the respectability? If I want to work for someone that's going to be operating like that, I don't think so. So there's so many things to evaluate, but really it just gets down to the athletic director making a decision that he or she thinks is best for their total program. And whatever that is, it's just up to the athletic director, and I'm sure the president as well, having to approve things.
So, with the pressure that comes from people writing checks and doing different things of that, is that something that's just, it comes with the job, you got to know that's coming, but you have to have the fortitude to be able to do what you need to do? Or is it are you beholden basically to the shareholders?
Well, James, I think a critical thing is it's really up to the athletic director to make decisions of that nature. And having been in that situation before, you have to evaluate so many things. And first and foremost are the goals and aspirations, are they meeting the moment that you discussed? I'm sure there's been discussion on this is what you should expect to see this season. These are our strengths, these are our weaknesses. So when you watch a game, some of those things will come to bear. So the worst thing can happen is for you to be totally shocked with certain things. That's probably a red flag there. But I think if you can't make the decision after one game, you have to see how the season plays out, because you've heard all the great stories about teams turning their program around, starting off with a loss. I mean, you got 11 other games. You just can't let that first game affect the second game. And so I just think there are so many things that, your president has to be in the loop. You're going to have donors out there. That's just part of the deal now. Anytime you lose, you're going to have people out there say, fire the coach. But, if you made that decision in the middle of the year, you're affecting so many people's lives that you have to be 100% convinced it can't work. And if there's any hesitation in there, you got to let the season play out, and then perhaps at the end of the season, make that decision to make a move, or say we're moving forward and here we go.
So that's typically why you see, if you see the changes, you see it late November. Because people, contrary to popular belief, it's not like the NFL. You do not get a higher recruiting class by losing more games. Like, it's not like the draft. You don't get a higher draft grade by being sneaky. You gotta finish it out. And as you talked about, you want to be able to show the young men that I'm here to develop you guys, and again, all of the cool stuff that everybody likes to lie about. It's about the university, it's about this, it's about loyalty. Well, you kind of got to show that. So you brought up a good point. Like, don't let one loss, you don't want to let one loss become two. Unfortunately, I just got a chance to witness one loss becoming two, and the play kind of going down a little bit. Florida State got a chance to play Boston College, and we did talk about Bill O'Brien a little bit, but that kind of, if they turn it around, which I believe they can, that gives us a pretty exciting team that went from potentially a playoff team last year to possibly being able to come to the Gator Bowl with a little bit of local flair. Florida State always comes to this game pretty good. What would be exciting about getting a national brand like a Florida State or something like that to be able to fall into our laps?
Well, their history with our game is magnificent. I mean, Bobby Bowden coached against West Virginia here earlier in the 2000s. He coached his last game here as a Seminole head coach. So obviously, I know FSU has greater aspirations than to perhaps be in our game, but if the Noles became available, they'd be very attractive to us.
Because at the end of the day, we want to, styles make fights and matchups, and that's what you want to be able to have, one of those things. So what were some of the other games that, we could talk one that doesn't, well, it does affect us a little bit. USC played LSU. Obviously, LSU, was this their third straight opening loss, but they're playing really, really big teams on a national scale. Exciting brand of football that Brian Kelly plays, tries to throw that ball around. We can't have an FSU-LSU matchup because they played last year, correct? But talk about that game a little bit and kind of what you saw from there.
Yeah, and before we talk about that, I want to get your opinion on this, going back to FSU. First of all, they opened the season in an unreal environment. Overseas, I mean, you're out of your routine altogether, okay? Tough trip coming home, a long way. You're traditionally going to play football on Saturdays, okay? Now you've got to wait until Monday, so you're out of sequence. Do you think that had anything to do with the way that FSU was able to prepare for a team that probably surprised everyone, because they didn't know what was going to happen with Boston College? They came in here and boy, they dominated. And I think that had a little something to do with it, because I've seen teams that maybe play on a Thursday night. It's just a different environment. Do you think that had anything to do with the environment or the approach?
Yes, I think I hate to make excuses for them, but yes, it did have something. I told people I wasn't as concerned about the first game as I was about the second game. As a guy who's traveled internationally, as a guy who hates to travel, I can get through it when I get there. Coming back, getting back into your normal routine, having to adjust to the time difference, you're tired, you're fatigued. The jet lag really affects you on the second leg of that trip. And coming into the situation also with Bill O'Brien, as opposed to the last coach, you have a completely different, they played 2 different first games. So you have no idea what you're coming into, except for, Castellanos is very good with his legs, and you know about Trayshawn Ward because he played for you. But the physicality that they were able to come through from just being a little bit more fresher and not having played a game, and I think that's just really what happened. And Florida State has to find some guys that look internally, because there was a glaring stat, and this is how I know Florida State has talent. Even with Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, they scored 6 minutes and 40 seconds was left in the game. Florida State didn't see the ball again. They're getting whooped on time of possession. If I showed you 2-1 time of possession, I should be showing you a 42-10 game, not a 24-21 game. Boston College had the ball 14 minutes and 8 seconds in the first quarter. For those who don't know, it's 15 minutes in a quarter. And they scored no points. They scored 14 in the second, 14 in the third, and then Florida State still had their chances. So a non-talented team is getting blown out. The problem is there's a disconnect with guys not knowing how to get out of their own way. So that's really the big thing. And I think Mike will eventually find it, or this might be a great learning lesson for a team that needs to get built back up if they're going to get back. But it's still stuck to watch.
Well, the best thing is they have an off weekend, so they can kind of get back into routine. Like you said, I think they'll right the ship, and I think they've got too much talent. I think they'll figure things out, and to where DJ can manage a game much like he did at Oregon State. His numbers weren't great at Oregon State, but Coach Smith there was able to put him in a position to manage the game. So I think the running game's got to appear and just run the ball, like Brent Key said, run the ball. Anyway, but I just wanted to get your feeling on that, because as a fan too, you're out of kilter too. You're used to going to Saturday games, either home or away, and you just play those odd time, odd location games, and it just throws you in a bit of a little different kind of kilter.
Yeah, definitely. Primetime Monday night, you gotta go to work on Tuesday. So it throws people off. But I know this, I tell these players all the time, my grandmother told me, when I got my little feelings hurt because we weren't playing that great and nobody thought I was going to be any good, she told me, who told your dumb behind to read? They did not bring you there to read. They brought you there to hit people. I tell them to go hit people and they'll talk about you good. Or to quote one of my favorite TV characters, Don Draper, if you don't like what's being said, change the conversation. You can change the conversation by winning. So conversation, huge. Week 1 of football, a lot of great games. What do we have to look forward to week 2 on the ACC and the SEC landscape?
Well, I think all eyes will be on the game in Charlotte, North Carolina against NC State and Tennessee. 2 top 20 teams. I think you're going to see a really high-scoring game there. It's going to be really a lot of fun to watch. Intra-conference, you've got South Carolina traveling to Kentucky. Kentucky, had their way with Southern Miss, and South Carolina struggled with ODU. Very fortunate to win that game, but they did win the game. So even though both those teams probably could not return here, we know Kentucky can't. It's still be interesting to watch. The only other game you've got is Cal at Auburn. So we'll get to see how those teams progress, but there are a lot of other games that are really going to be, I think, blowouts this weekend. So a little light compared to last week, to where we just had game after game after game of heavyweights. So a little bit lighter, but boy, week 3, we really pick up in the action.
And then just even across the board, Georgia plays everybody, all the good. If Georgia can go undefeated this year, I will go on record and say that might be the best college football team, regardless of stats. But to play Alabama, Texas, Ole Miss, right now, those are 3 top 6 teams right there for according to the current AP. So we have our new list out. We have the projections. A lot of teams are projecting FSU or Louisville to be able to come here. What do we think about the current projections, and are the pundits kind of on track right now?
I think they are, because they took the North Carolina State-Tennessee game off the board, which we know that can't happen. That'd be a repeat from a game this year. But I think either way you look at it, we're going to really have two really good teams. And I think that's the exciting part of this, is you're seeing, Boston College emerge. Can they maintain that level of play? Tech going to Syracuse this weekend. Can they maintain that level of play on the road? Be their first true road game. So we'll just see a lot of things develop here, but I'm not disappointed with any matchup I see among the 10 prognosticators that have predicted games. I think you just pick any one of those and say, let's go play ball and have a great game on the second.
Which is one of the beauties of conference expansion, as well as the 12-team playoff. So everybody, just change doesn't mean the world is falling. You don't have to be Chicken Littles out here. It actually will probably make the bowl game season so much more incredible, because there will be more big time matchups than what you were used to being able to see. And it all comes down to January 2nd, prime time, Jacksonville, Florida, the Gator Bowl. And each and every week, we will be giving you the updates here. Me and Greg McGarity with the TaxSlayer Gator Bowl Drive to Selection presented by Toyota. We will see you guys next week.